The new Nissan Leaf, simply amazing according to Nissan, but that's been their strapline since the start, and perhaps it was when it first came out. But I want to know, is this car the right car for me and my family to change into, or have things evolved a bit, and are there one or two other issues now surrounding this car that I need to be concerned with? Before I start looking at this car in its entirety, let's just talk about that big issue that always comes up when anybody ever talks about this 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, and that is Rapidgate. In a nutshell, it's to do with the thermal management of the battery. There is no active thermal management in this car, i.e. no liquid cooling, no fan cooling. It's passive, which means that it's controlled by its software, and there's an airflow that is allowed through the battery pack to keep it cool. The problem is batteries don't like extremes of temperature. They definitely don't like being hot. So when you accelerate harshly, or if you drive quickly, or you rapid charge multiple times, these things heat your battery up. And they heat the battery up to the point where if you were to continue to do it, it would shorten the life of your battery. So you can either cool the battery down, make it able to continue as it is, or you have to stop the input that's heating up the battery. And in the case of this Leaf, Nissan have decided that the way to do that is to throttle charging. So if I'm on a rapid charger at 50 kilowatts, then they will, at the point the battery becomes too hot, sorry, I've got to drive around a horse, I'm in the New Forest, it's all very pleasant. At the point the battery becomes too hot, there will be at least a 50% reduction in the speed that you can charge it up. People report an awful lot more as well. That's done by the software, and that's to allow the battery life over the lifetime of the car to be the best it possibly can. Now, my own personal view on this is Nissan definitely dropped a ball on this one. They advertised this car as being not only amazing, but a do-anything car. Not like the previous one where you had limitations. This one really was billed as, this is the EV that will get you out and about. At no point did they ever mention about the throttling. They, having had this story come out, Nissan were initially quite slow to respond. But ultimately, they said that, yes, it does do that. They were honest in the end. And they pointed to the manual and said, well, if you had read the manual, you would have seen that it does say it will throttle charging if the battery gets hot, and that's to protect the battery. Well, I don't think that was good enough. I think right from the off, they should have been honest with their customers. They should have trained their sales staff, and they should have told us what the limitations of the car were. That's in the past now. That's come and gone. We now know what the limitations of this car are. So if I was to buy this car, I have all the knowledge, the full knowledge of what it does and how it will perform. So with that in mind, I am going to talk no more about Rapidgate now until the end of the video, when I will make an overall judgment about whether Rapidgate will affect me in my everyday driving this car. And not just my everyday driving. If I look at my driving over the last 3 or 4 years, would it have caused me any problems at any point? So that's it for now. Let's get on with having a look at the car and what I think of this as a car in its entirety. Let's start with the inside, and just the general feel of this car, I have to say, is very good. It is a step on from the previous Nissan Leaf. For those of you who don't know, I currently drive a 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. It's a Tecna. This is a Tecna. Mine is 3 years old. So this is a generation on, but 2 batteries on from where mine was. It's definitely an improvement. There's an awful lot in here that feels very familiar. Some of the buttons are the same, door panels are the same. In fact, to save me saying this over and over again, it's my view that this isn't necessarily a second generation Leaf. I think this is a major facelift. There's so much in and around this car, inside and out, that looks the same as the original Nissan Leaf. I think it's a bit of a push to say it's a new generation. I think what they've done is they've been very clever in keeping the good functional bits and adding some really, really good extra toys, for want of a better word, to complement it. So if we carry on, there are some improvements around the dash. It feels a lot tighter, a lot not that there was anything wrong with the old one, it was a very good build quality in that. It's just this one feels better again. It feels like they've made some improvements. There's no noise, there's no squeaks, there's no rattles. It's what you expect an EV to be like inside. So no expense spared there as far as I'm concerned. The display, this is kind of your love or hate it. I've got to say, I don't like the analog speedo. I do like the digital, the left-hand side, if you like, that gives me so many different options about how to set the car up, how to set up ProPilot, all the information that I need while I'm driving. I do like that side of it. The screen with a sat-nav on in the middle, I think they could have done a bit more with that. I think it's bigger than the other one, but it doesn't seem as big. It doesn't seem quite as good quality, and I've got to be honest, it just looks a bit cheap to me. Not overly impressed with that. I would have liked to have seen a much bigger, much better quality screen there, much like most of the other modern cars that are coming about at the moment. They've still got some of this shiny plastic stuff, but nowhere near as much, so that's a good thing. But honestly, Nissan, get rid of it. It's horrible. It scratches and marks. It's awful to look after, but that's a minor point. The seats are really comfortable. The steering wheel's really comfortable. The driving position is a good commanding position. It just feels very pleasant in here. As I say, it's not unfamiliar compared to the old Nissan Leaf. It's just an improvement. So well done, Nissan. I think you've got the inside of this car just right. When we look at the exterior, I'm not as enthusiastic. You know, it's an all right looking car. It's Nissan of the day. Personally speaking, I would like to see something different. Something that shows that this is an EV, not just a pumped up Nissan Micra. I'm struggling to complain about it. I'm just a bit underwhelmed. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It looks all right. There's some nice touches around the lights. It's fine. It's a nice, all right, middle of the road car that will sell to people that don't want a quirky, different looking EV. I'm not one of those people, but you know, I'm probably not the mass market. There's probably an awful lot more people that like the unassuming look of this Nissan Leaf. So as a package, it's quite nice. So that brings us, for me, to one of the really strong plus points in this car, and that is ProPilot. Now, ProPilot isn't autopilot, it isn't cruise control, it's somewhere in the middle. And what it does is it allows you to set a lane, a speed, a distance from the car in front that you want to be, and then it pretty much drives itself. But don't get carried away. This is not autonomous driving. You still need to be in control of the car. Always be in control of the car. Don't take your hands off the steering wheel. This is a way of taking some of the, I guess, stress and pressure away of long distance driving. Allows you to relax a little bit more, but you still need to be in control of this car. It steers itself, it will brake, it will start, it will go faster, slower, it will adapt to the conditions around it. As long as it has got good lines either side that it can read, then it's absolutely fine. If you take your hands off the steering wheel or you try to ignore it, then it very much will tell you off. It beeps at you, and it gets to the point where it slows down, pulls to the side and stops if you have no input, which is a good safety feature, I guess, if you have some sort of episode at the wheel and you can't drive. But I think for me, it's a good feature to have on a car at this price point. I know we're seeing it more and more, but something that we wouldn't have expected in the past. So that's really nice. There is a park assist as well. This car doesn't have it on, but I've never got on with parking assist. I've got no issues parallel parking. I find they're cumbersome, they take too long. They're just, after the initial novelty of it, you never use it. So I'm not that worried about that. It's quite an expensive extra. Other than that, you get in here what you expect in a top of the range car. Leather seats, nice trim, air conditioning, folding mirrors, heated back seats, heated steering wheel, sat nav, DAB, you know, all those things that you expect to get, they're all in here, and they all work well. So as a package, again, I'll say it's a very attractive package. So what I want to do now is I just want to get on with my day, put some miles in. I'm going to drive. I've already done some urban driving. I've done some driving in the countryside. I've got to get on a motorway, dual carriageway, try out ProPilot properly, and then we'll see what the mileage looks like. When I got this car from the garage, I plugged it in, got to 100%. It was showing that I had 170 miles of range, which from what I understand is very, very good. Whether that will be the same after I finish driving it, we'll see. But as always, I'm going to drive this car like I drive every other car. I don't race, but I don't pootle up to 60 mile an hour. I get to 60 mile an hour. I sit at 60 mile an hour. I do 70 mile an hour on dual carriageways and motorways. So it should give you a good idea of what normal everyday driving that you would do in a petrol or diesel car equates to in this car, and how many miles we'll get on the back of it. So I'll speak to you again later on today. Well, that's it. The sun is going down on another day, and I've just had to pull over here because I didn't want to lose the light. I wanted to kind of sum up what I'd found today. I've had a really good day of driving, and actually this has really surprised me, this car. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I have done. And the reason I say that is there's a few things. First and foremost is the quality. The quality of this car is definitely better than I expected. It's really well put together, and it feels like a better car than what it should, if that makes sense. So that's really, really nice. The other thing is some of the features in here. Now, I talked about ProPilot before. Actually, I don't use cruise control a lot in my Leaf because it's not as efficient. Obviously, it's not so bad in here because the range is that much further. But what I found it really useful for was on dual carriageway where the traffic was really slow moving. And it was just a nice thing to have turned on as I was in that stop-start traffic. It took away some of the functions that I had to do. So that was nice. But the biggest surprise for me was the e-pedal. As much as I got excited about it originally, I then kind of came back and thought, well, is it really going to make that much difference? Well, on the open road, A roads, dual carriageways, etc., no, it doesn't. I had it turned off. But as soon as you get into the town, after a little bit of playing with it and getting used to how it works, it makes town driving an absolute pleasure. So that e-pedal is a lovely function. I really like that. Now, as far as mileage is concerned, during the course of today, with my charge, I'm looking at doing 140 miles on a charge. And, I haven't been hanging about. I've had a proper day's driving. There's been a mixture of everything from 70 mile an hour dual carriageway driving for some time, to fast A road driving, to twisty B roads and country roads. So it really has been across everything, which is a pretty good demonstration of my normal driving, really. And yeah, 140 miles, I'm quite impressed with that. I was really expecting it to drop away from some of the reports I'd heard. So that for me, 40 kilowatt hour battery is more than enough. When you consider my everyday driving, and obviously I've been thinking about it today and trying to work out the distances that I travel. Now, the most I do on my day-to-day driving is just over 100 miles. And I probably do that a couple of times a month. It involves a school run, a trip to the gym, a school pickup, and a drive to work and back. That's probably as far as I go in my everyday driving. I also then, as I said before, I need to consider, right, if I buy one of these cars, this needs to replace my petrol car. I need to be able to do all the things I do in my petrol car with this car. So in the last 4 years, what journeys have I done? And I've been to, so give you an idea, I'll bring a map up and show you, but I live down the south coast on the edge of the New Forest. From here, I've been to Cornwall 3 or 4 times in the last 4 years. I've been to Manchester a couple of times, visited family up near Lincoln probably 3 times, and I've been to London several times. So in 4 years, not a massive amount of long distance driving, but if I'm going to buy this car, I need this car to be able to do it. So I was working out some mileage just to see how that would work when we're coming back to Rapidgate now. I said I'd come back to it, so let's look at that. So the furthest any of those trips are is my trip to Manchester. It's 240 miles, Lincoln 220 miles, Cornwall 160 miles, London is about 100 miles. So 240 miles is the furthest I will ever go. Now, basing that on the fact that this can do the driving I've done today, 140 miles, I will obviously start the day with 140 miles charging at home overnight. So my first charge after 140 miles, I shouldn't have an issue with battery temperature, and I should be able to rapid charge. So in 30 minutes, I should be somewhere around 80% charge, which is, I think, probably about between 110 and 112 extra miles. So that will get me up to 250 plus miles. Well, I've reached Manchester by then. So even if I need to stop and do a second brief charge just to get another 20 miles, that's not going to be a long charge, even if the battery started to warm up. So this car will work for 100% of my journeys that I've done in the last 4 years. So Rapidgate for me isn't an issue. So for now, I've had a good day. Hopefully, if you are considering buying one of these, with my driving, my mileage, pretty typical I would say, maybe it's alleviated some of your fears, maybe it hasn't. But hopefully it's shown you that pretty much most people, unless you are commuting hundreds of miles every day, this is more than adequate. Not to say that Nissan didn't do wrong in the first place, but you know, I was in possession of all the information when I test drove this, and it hasn't put me off. So yeah, a very good day. Hopefully that's helped you. If it has, remember to like and share, and if you're not doing so already, subscribe to the channel, and check out the Patreon link if you want to support the channel. And for now, you take care, and I'll see you again soon.